Welcome back to Unmasked. I'm Ronnie Thompson.
And I'm Adam Lazowski. Keep listening to hear this week's question.
Hey, I'm Ronnie.
I'm Adam.
I'm Anna. Today we're asking,
What's the craziest thing you've ever done?
Let's go. What's something crazy that happened to you?
So my freshman year of college, first spring break, I met a kid online, lived in Rochester, New York, about a 6-hour drive away from me. Spring break, I didn't really have any plans. Flights were cheap, so I booked a flight, went and stayed at his house for 5 days. Didn't tell my parents and only one of my friends where I was going, and I made it back alive, so.
my friend did something really similar to that.
Nice.
One time, I manifested a free trip to Greece because I was telling myself I wanted to go to Greece, but I had no attachment to the idea at all. And then I met my best friend to this day. She's from Greece. And then she was like, come to Greece. And I was like, okay, bet. I happened to take an econ class in the summer. They refunded me the exact amount I needed to buy a ticket to Greece. And then everything was paid for when I got there. So that was kind of goated.
Well, one time I was at Tavern in the Square for the first Thirsty Thursday of the semester, and I'm in the room, and I look over, and then my ex is there with his girlfriend, and then I look over, and his other ex, who hates me, is also in the same room. All the while, like, I'm under the influence, so I'm like, oh, this is great. And then my friend goes, blah, blah, blah is here, and points at him. And I'm like, I know. Like, bro was right there. So then I'm, like, pointing, or he was pointing, and I was like, stop.
So my freshman year of college, I was taking antibiotics, and then I decided, I had no idea that you could get infections more easily while on antibiotics. I decided to try out Tinder, and I did stuff with a guy, and I ended up getting an infection, which ended up getting a bit bad, and I had to go to the emergency room for a bit, yeah.
So I'm an international student, and when I had to change my 20, before I went to BU, I got recruited to Cox for the men's rowing team at GW, but they messed up my name, and GW put my first name as my last name, and then like middle name as my first name, so I wasn't able to go back to the US, and I took a gap year after that, but it was a really good time, so it's my story.
Okay, so when I was like 6 or 7, my dad left me on an island, and he got on the boat and left, and he was gone for like 2 or 3 hours before he realized I was gone, and then he got back on the boat and came back to pick me up, and then my parents got divorced.
Follow up?
Do you think that experience changed your entire life?
Like, no, because they would have got divorced anyway, but I did get left on an island. It was kind of fun.
How big was the island?
Like, not that big. It was George's Island in Boston, but it's like supposedly haunted, so like I could have died.
I stole my mom's car for a night and she didn't even realize. I parked in the same spot, no scratches, no nothing.
How long did you take it out for?
Like 4 hours.
All right, so I was walking outside of Mugar, and I looked to my left where that entrance is, and I see someone, and I thought that it was my friend. And then I was like, oh wait, no, that wasn't Yusra. And then I looked to my right, and it actually is Yusra over there. It was kind of crazy.
So he transported.
She right here.
Teleported.
Yeah. She teleported, kind of, but she had a clone also. Yeah.
And that's the craziest thing that has ever happened to you in your entire life?
Yes.
What's something crazy that's happened to you?
I went 2 states over, so about 8-hour drive with my mom's car without her knowing. And she thought I was in Mississippi and then in Baton Rouge, which is in Louisiana. I was actually in Austin, Texas. For about a week, and she didn't know until the very 2 last days for a concert.
Did she get upset?
She does not know to this day, and I have toll tickets, just because I used the toll and I paid for them, and she got a refund check, and she's like, oh, why do I have this refund check? and I was like, oh, probably just refund from when we went to Texas 2 years ago. It was me. It was the money that came back from me. I just never got it back.
What was the concert?
It was Rina Sawayama. So good. She was like a goddess. It was so fun. I was so sad she was sick, so we didn't get to meet her afterwards. But my friend's going again in October in New Orleans, and hopefully she can get a signature for me.
So I have two younger sisters. When the middle sister and I were much younger, like when we were like in kindergarten, elementary school, we were trying golf, and I told my sister, hey, I'm gonna swing, get out of the way, and I swung, and she was still there, and I made her bleed right in the middle of her forehead, and she still has a scar.
Because you swung the club?
Yeah, I mean, I told her to get out of the way, and I guess she didn't. And I got scolded really bad, and I felt bad, but it's an enduring scar.
You'll never forget.
Lasting memory.
Lasting memory, for sure, yeah.
So I went to a BTS concert in Paris when I was like a sophomore in high school, and after it ended around 12 a.m. and it was just me and my sister going back home on the metro, and I didn't know but at the time, but apparently after midnight there's a lot of pickpocketers trying to pickpocket tourists and stuff like that. And I had on the metro there were some guys staring at my sister's bag, so I had a weird feeling, so I told her to watch her bag, and then I think they realized that we noticed them, and they kind of just walked away. So I was like, oh, maybe I was just over exaggerating or whatever. And then we got off the metro and we're walking out in one of the exits. It's a tunnel, and there's no one there, and I see these two Asian girls walking, and out of nowhere those three people from the metro appear, and two of them cover while one unzips their bag. And it was so stupid because they could have had a knife on them or something, and out of nowhere, just out of instinct, I go I shout hey, what are you doing? And then the two guys that were covering him got scared and ran off, and then the other guy was trying to say some weird excuses hey, your bag was open, I was just zipping it, and I don't think the girls understood, so they were confused. And after they and he kind of ran off, and then he and then I went up to them and was they were trying to pickpocket you, but I don't think they spoke English, so I don't think they understood me. And then we were okay, let's get out of here, me and my sister. So we were walking, and the one guy that was pickpocketing, he comes up behind me, spits at the back of my head, and I scream at him. I raised my fist at him. I don't know what kind of strength I had to do that, and he looks at me and just walks away.
I went down to South Africa and I got in a cage surrounded by great white sharks. They would put a bunch of chum around us so the sharks would get very hungry and active around us, and a couple of them actually tried to break into the cage.
Jeez.
How did you feel during that experience?
I was really scared, obviously, especially when one of the smaller sharks actually was able to almost get its head through the cage. So I was kind of shitting my pants, but it was an overall really cool experience. It's something I definitely look back on nowadays a lot more. So,
how tiny was the cage?
It was pretty big. It fit 12 of us in there. So it was a big horizontal cage, but there was gaps in it, obviously. So a smaller shark definitely could get its head in there.
Would you do it again?
100%. Probably with no cage this time, though.
What's the craziest thing that's happened to you?
Okay, so when I was in the 8th grade, I wore a tracksuit over my basketball uniform, and one time I was getting ready for the game, took off my track top, then I took off my track pants, and then I'm just fully standing there for a minute. Everyone's staring at me. I'm what's wrong? And then I feel a breeze, and I realize I forgot to put my basketball shorts
on under my track uniform, and I was commando that day. Yeah, so that was pretty awful, pretty traumatizing, full arena of people. My coach saw. It was really bad. So yeah, that was probably the craziest thing, flashing the whole arena. So yeah.
So bad. What is the craziest thing you've done or has happened to you?
Well, actually, finding this podcast, I was about to leave. I was trying to find you guys, but I saw you all sitting at this table here. My friend just texted me a picture of y'all and asked me to come find you guys and figure out the name of your podcast. So I'm really happy I found y'all.
Now Adam and Rani will answer the question. What is the craziest thing that has happened to you or that you've done?
So I was at my grandma's house and we were walking down like a quiet street corner, and there was like a little bit of like it wasn't a barking, but it was like kind of a squealing sound that was coming from like behind this like fence area. And we looked over and it was just like a small dog, and we were like, oh wow. But then we noticed like on the sides of its mouth it had like a little bit of like this white, like you could say like froth that was coming off the side. And we noticed that it wasn't on a chain, it was on a rope, and the rope was kind of like moldy, it was green. So we were like, okay, well, I mean, he's behind a fence, so it should be okay. So we just walked by slowly, you know, kind of keeping our distance. And all of a sudden, the dog like catches eye contact with us, rips the rope, jumps over the fence in like a second, and he's chasing after us. And again, this dog has got like froth, and I'm like, oh, dude, this guy's got rabies on him or something like that. So now me and my brother, my sister, and my cousin, we're booking it down the main road, and this dog is fast, even though it's small. It's sprinting after us. By far, the most adrenaline I've ever had in my life was that run as we were running down the thing. I felt like a track star, dude, no way. Ronnie.
Okay, so my crazy story is in sophomore year of college. So 2 years ago, I learned how to ride a bike for the first time. I'd never ridden one before. And there was this event that was happening with the class where it was like sign up for an e-bike tour. So I signed up for it because I was like, oh, that sounds like it just rides itself. I didn't know what an e-bike was. And so then I realized what an e-bike was 2 days before, or a day before the actual tour. So my friend taught me how to ride a bike with the blue bikes, like in an alley. And it was actually pretty like challenging for me. And so the next day we go to this e-bike tour, and it's 3 hours, and we're like biking through Boston. We're going through traffic. There were a lot of moments where I wasn't sure if I was gonna make it for the rest of that tour. I crashed into a trash can at one point and just kind of slid down it like a cartoon. And then it started raining too during the tour, and that was the part where my friend and I got lost from the rest of the group. So we're just going along with all the cars. It was crazy for me because I, first of all, had never ridden a bike before, and second of all, had never ridden a bike like that, like in the city. So that was a good experience because it taught me that I was able to do something like that. And I haven't ridden a bike since.
Thanks, Ronnie. Now to give you a little bit of a sample of what happens in GSU on a daily basis.
Pledges.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Unmasked. Tune in next week to hear
us again. Take care.
Yay.